Hello everyone, it's Logan and today we're going to talk about the overview of instructional design and different learning theories. So here's what's on the agenda today. We're going to, number one, define instructional design. Number two, talk about the brief learning models and the learning theories. And finally, we're going to wrap it up with a real world example. Let's see what we learned today. All right, so we're starting off today. What is instructional design? So instructional design has been defined in many ways. So today we looked at one of our readings and we said it's using different principles, learning principles, to develop instructional materials and activities. This can include different assessments, different learning activities, different lectures, various different ways we can put it all together. Okay, so now that we've got that down pat, let's talk about the learning theories. So we have three different learning theories: behaviorism, constructivism, and cognitivism. Okay, so behaviorism, this is learning through frequent repetition. We go over and over and over it. So basically memorizing facts or vocabulary words. Okay, constructivism, developing knowledge from prior experience. So we're building blocks, okay? So if they come to our class knowing something, we're going to build upon it, okay? Finally, cognitivism, okay? Learning in smaller increments. One little thing, one building block at a time, okay? We're not going to overload their plate. Okay, our learning models. Today we have 5 different learning models we're going to talk about: the Addy model, the Dick and Carey model, the Robert M. Gagne's model, 9 events of instructionism, the Merrill's 5 principles of instruction, and finally we're going to wrap it up with the rapid e-learning design. Let's get started. So the Addy model, okay, if we look here we can see the map and how it's designed. Okay, so the Addy model was developed in the 1970s. It's simple and it's effective. It's the most common method and it helps organize and streamline tasks. So it has 5 different steps. First is A, analysis. They ask who, what, where, why, and how. So who are we dealing with? What are we talking about? Where are we at? Why are we teaching this? And how are we going to instruct this? Design. So like when we design any lesson, we're going to think about, okay, what is our delivery method? Are we going to deliver it through technology, through lecture? How are we going to structure it? Okay, is it going to be one 90-minute lesson? Is it going to be a 45-minute lesson? How long? Duration, is it going to be 2 tasks? How are we going to structure and how is this going to be, how are we going to have this time allotted to it? Assessment, how are we going to assess this? Are we going to give a formal task? Are we going to have a formal test? Is it going to be experiential? How? All right, feedback. How are we going to receive feedback? Is it going to be through the kids? Are we going to take their assessment and give it through feedback? Or are we going to have an administrator give us feedback? So step 3, the second D, development. We create the course and the content. So we have to ask ourselves, can a learner progress this, or is it too long? Is it engaging? So again, we have to ask ourselves, okay, take into mind, what age are the students? Do we need it for a week long? Does it need to be a semester long? How much do we need to add on to their plate? Finally, is it engaging? I don't know about you, but I love to be engaged. If I get bored, I'm not going to really care. I'm going to lose the content. Okay, step 4, implementation. So this is where we implement our course. So we start a pilot before launching the course. Okay, like you, I might have a test dummy and say, all right, try this out. Let's see if this survey works. Okay? And if it doesn't, we've got to figure it out before we embarrass ourselves. Step 2, we allow feedback. Okay? So from our person testing it out, they're going to give us feedback and tell us what do we need to change before we make this course official. And finally, we monitor the courses. Let's see how everybody is doing. Make sure we don't have any challenges. Make sure nobody needs any help. Okay? And finally, our final step, the evaluation. So we ask ourselves, what were our goals originally? Did we meet them? Okay? Now that we're done, now that we've concluded this course, we take the feedback, we take the evaluation, whether it's a formal evaluation from the administrator, feedback from our students. Okay, what do we need to change to make this successful in the future? And then we identify other training opportunities available, such professional development, what materials do we need for next year, and so on. So that is the most simple and effective model, and that's the most commonly used. So moving on to our next one, the Dick and Carey model. So if we look at here at the Dick and Carey model, this is a very long map. However, it's very simple. It's very often used. Here's a brief overview. It's also known as a systems approach model. It was developed in the 1970s as well, 1978 to be exact. It's similar to the ADDIE model. However, there's just a few more steps. Okay, it's more structured than the ADDIE model though. So moving to our first step, instructional goals. When we're developing a course or a lesson, what are the goals that we want to project? Okay, what do we want at the end? Okay, next, like I always ask myself as a college person in higher education, when we have students, what skills do we want them to learn? What skills do they need for the job market so that we can implement them into this class? So in pre-service teachers, we like to talk about teaching skills, planning skills. Those may be a few that we like to talk about. All right, stage 3, entry level behaviors. Okay, so what behaviors and mindsets and characteristics are they coming into this course with? Okay, again, we like to think about the age and the maturity that they have. All right, what ways do they like to learn? Are they a kinesthetic learner? Are they a visual learner? Okay, what things do we have to take into account? So do we want to show YouTube videos? Do we want to show, or do we want to do just lecture-based learning? That's what we need to take into account. All of our learners, not every student in our class are going to be the same learner. Next, stage 4, develop the performance and objectives. The performance objectives. I have had professors talk about the objectives, and the objectives. It is always the student's will. So, what do we want them to be able to perform within this lesson? I always had properly identify different textures of soil. Are we going to shoot above the moon in our objectives? No, we're going to take it one bite at a time, okay? Little by little. Okay, stage 5, the reference test items. We want to create our test that aligns with our objectives. Again, I had professors that always said, never put something on a test that is not in your objectives. That is not fair. I mean, treat others the way you would want to be treated, is like the way I like to think. If they put something on the test that's out of this world, that's not the right thing to do. Finally, number 6, the instructional strategy. We develop our lesson plans. Okay, this is something that we always do in the teaching world. Next, the 7th stage, the instructional materials. What materials are we going to need? What videos, what PowerPoints are we going to use? Next, the formative evaluation or assessment. What assignments are we going to give them along the way to know that they are progressing? Okay, is it group discussion? Is it is it going to be just a review at the end of the test, an exit ticket? Okay, number 9, the summative evaluation. So, is it the end of the unit exam? Is it a end of the week quiz? How are we going to summarize it all up to know that, all right, did they learn? Is it something that I did? What do I need to change next year? Again, with the formative evaluation, if they're not learning, what do I need to change between here and the end of the unit exam? The Gagne's 9 events of instruction. I feel like this is the most similar thing that I learned as a pre-service teacher in form of structured lesson planning. Okay, and we'll get talking about that in just a second. So Gagne's had 9 different steps in this. Okay, and again, gain the attention of the students. I mentioned this in another model. Okay, we want to keep engaged. So I was always taught, again as a teacher, we want to have an interest approach or a hook. Let's get those students to bite on so that they're engaged throughout the lesson and they don't lose their interest. So as an interest approach, I always like to get their attention to talk about something in the real world, okay, something to engage in. I always had students that were, I had a primary interest boys in my class, and so we always talked about cattle, or they always liked talking about trucks. So if we were talking about animals that day and livestock, all right, so what's something about your trucks that you would compare to animals, structure-wise in your truck? What are something that you look for? All right, and so they would talk about the tires, so on, but that's how I got their interest. Okay, inform the students of the objectives. What are we planning to do today? Are we planning to talk about the textures of soils, so on? The third stage is stimulate recall of prior learning. So what are some things that we learned in prior lessons, okay, that we can build upon? Okay, so what did we talk about yesterday that we can build upon? So in our school district, we always had bell work. We could go back to vocabulary words that we might have had prior lessons. So if we're talking about in biology, if we're talking about cells, we could talk about, cell functions. We could talk about what were some cell parts that we talked about the day before. Okay, or brainstorming or a brain map. Okay, those are some things that I've heard of people doing, and I've done it once or twice. Okay, what are some ideas that came to their head that we talked about last week? And see if they could all put it on a piece of paper. Number 4, present the content. We can present the content in multiple different ways. The most common one I know people like to do is a lecture. Now, we want to break that apart piece by piece. I've always heard the magic number was 20 minutes. Don't give over a 20-minute lecture because people will lose their mind and lose interest. Number 5, provide learning guidance, one-on-one. We've got to, again, remember that all of our learners are different types of learners. Not every learner is going to be on the same page. So, once we get our content, our assignment assigned, all right, let's talk to these, go around the room, talk to these individuals one at a time, see how they're processing this. Okay, and elicit performance, practice. Okay, give them a practice assignment. I like to think of math class, algebra class when I was younger. They always had homework and always had practice in the middle of class. Provide feedback, peer and self-evaluation. So this goes both ways. What feedback can we give our students? And what can our students help each other? Okay, and what feedback can they give us as well? Okay, how can we improve our class, our instructional methods? Okay, so peers can give each other feedbacks by saying, okay, so I don't think it was this specific texture of soil, but it might be this. Let's work in groups. I think students always enjoyed working in groups if they were assigned to the right group, of course. Uh, Number 8, assess performance. Let's see how their performance is doing, how they are learning. So pre and post test is a common way of doing it. Formative assessments. All right. So let's see how they're going along. Okay. Again, exit tickets are a common thing used. Projects, group projects. Let's see how they're doing along that. I always like to have creative activities that they could do that weren't just pencil and paper. All right. Let's see. Apply the skills that we are learning in class. Apply the content. Number 9, enhance retention and transfer. So convert learning into one format into another. Let's build upon prior learning. And we're going to talk about the learning theories in a minute. And so it'll all start to mesh together. So again, this is applying I like to apply a real world experience here in applying the building blocks. So let's move on to our next learning model. Merrill's first principles of instruction. So, here's a brief overview of Merrill's principles. So, they were originally created in 2002 by David Merrill. They promote creative learning and learner-centered instruction. So, they like for the learners to lead the lesson, the learners to explore. And they were composed of 5 key principles. And here are those principles: activation, demonstration, application, integration, and problem center. So we want to activate their mind, demonstrate the skills they're going to learn, apply the skills to a specific lesson. Okay, so if I talk about small engines, I'm going to activate their mindset by identifying what the different the different parts of a small engine are, demonstrate how to take apart a small engine. Then we're going to put it back together. Then we're going to apply about how to what are the different things about a small engine. We're integrating. All right, what are all the parts in the small engine put together? We're going to talk about troubleshooting. So troubleshooting was a specific word that Merrill used in his YouTube video. And problem-centered. So we're going to talk about troubleshooting small engines. We're going to integrate taking the small engine apart and troubleshooting and problem-centered. So as we talk about inquiry-based learning, this is very similar to what inquiry-based learning is, in my opinion. Finally, rapid e-learning. So rapid e-learning is electronic-based learning. We're seeing it more and more common. This first happened in 2000s, and we use pictures and visual aids. I love seeing visual aids. I do not like reading words. We're going to keep it short and sweet, to the point. We have one objective per lesson. We're going to break it apart into small groups. We're not going to drag on forever. And finally, we're going to apply it to the real world. When are we going to use it? And sometimes we listen to these series and we say, when am I ever going to use this? So we like to wrap it up by applying it in the real world. So we talked about those different learning theories. All right, and here are different learning models. Here's where they sit on that scale. I believe behaviorism is more, okay, remember we talked about it's more repetition, and memorizing. So rapid e-learning, we talk about it in comes in small little components, and this is where I believe it sits. Cognitivism, okay, remember that's applying it to the real world, and construction is building upon prior knowledge. I believe Gagne's 9 events of instruction, okay, it sits in between behaviorism and cognitivism. We want it to apply it to the real world, but we're basing it off of facts. Okay, moving on to Merrill's principles of instruction. Okay, we talk about, okay, it's going to be, they want to talk about real world problems and problem solving. So I believe that's something that we can apply in the real world. The ADDIE model, it's talking about building blocks. And we also, at the end of the day, we want to apply it to the real world. That kind of sits in between. And finally, the Dick and Carry model. I believe that's pure constructionism. We're building upon prior knowledge. Okay, the real life problem that I'm going to talk about today, and I use the ADDIE, we're going to talk about it in the ADDIE model. So the real life problem we started with, and remember I'm a graduate assistant. So last year in the state of Louisiana, okay, a majority of ag teachers in Louisiana are on what we call a 12-month contract, meaning they work during the summer. Okay, students majoring in agricultural education were feeling like they were not getting fully prepared during their student teaching experience. They felt like by the time they began their student teaching experience, they were not prepared for that one semester, as well as the life of an ag teacher when they accepted that job. So we put our minds together and we said, how can we prepare our students? That was our problem. So, analyzing, again, the professors wanted to expose their students to the summer and the fall semesters of a 12-month contract. We only sent our pre-service teachers to student teach during the spring. So, the events that were happening through the fall and the summer, they were not exposed to, such as camps and conventions. So, we said, all right, how can we do this? So the professors went and talked to other agricultural education programs throughout the country to see what were they doing to expose their students to this similar problem. Were they even having this problem as well? And how were their programs structured? So that was the analysis part. Now to the first D, design. Okay, so we developed an early field experience course, and we said, all right, if we offer this course, what are our main goals for our students? What do we want the pre-service teachers to achieve? We said we want them to see the full day of an ag teacher, and we want them to apply real-world lessons before going to student teaching. Because if we think about it, if they are in a teaching methods class and they're having just doing regular lessons in college classroom, that's not going to be practical. So we said we want them to get a taste early before they go to student teaching. Next, we want to develop. So the second D, we put a planning and a syllabus in place, and they were developed to go into effect on the summer of 2024. The student teachers were they were able to build a relationship with their cooperating teacher that spring prior to their observation hours of that summer. So they kind of had a schedule together. Were they going to go to FFA convention? Were they going to go to FFA camps? What days were they going to meet with that cooperating teacher? Finally, implement. So we implemented this program. 2 pre-service teachers were the pilot cohort of this program in the summer and fall of 2024. They attended a seminar course that we offered twice a week. They were expected to apply the assignments that we gave them within their host program. So for example, we told them, all right, we want you to do an inquiry-based teaching assignment this week. They would then go to their program and complete a lesson regarding inquiry-based learning. So we also implemented technological programs such as Seesaw that they had to import documents for us so that we could see everything. And finally, evaluation. Again, I just said that we've completed this program. We offered formative assessments, such as the micro lessons, okay? Also, they gave us reflection, so we were able to see what was working and what was not working, okay? Summative evaluation. So some of the evaluation of this program happened after they student talk. They came and gave us feedback about how did this prepare them for the student teaching experience. Also, do they feel prepared for the job market in July when they take their first job? Okay, they felt prepared. Okay, this paid off. They said, all right, and we'll continue this with our next cohort this upcoming summer and fall. So that's the real world experience I tell you about. And conclusion, e-learning has helped us, is used for critical thinking, but we must design the instruction properly. We must try to implement all three learning theories for success of the learners. And finally, here are my references that we have. If you have any questions, please let me know. I like to hear your feedback. Thank you.